Hello and welcome to Data Conversations over coffee with myself, Craig Stewart. Today is a really special episode. We're actually in studio for the first time filming a live conversation between myself and the winners of the DataCon Data Analytics Project of the Year Award, Naidoo and Naresh Ramatar from Standard Bank. Thank you so much for coming in, guys. It's great to have you. Won the award for Project of the Year, and it was for your GINA project, which is really about robotic process automation in the internal audit environment, but it's actually gone a lot further than that. Maybe you can give us a little bit of background into how GINA started and where it sits now within the banking environment. Naresh, maybe we'll kick off with you.
Yes, I think it all started about our journey in terms of investment in innovation, and we truly believe that we needed to develop something, to build something that was for the broader benevolence, not only to the internal audit profession, but to the entire lines of defense and across the industry. And as we embarked on that journey and we built this incredible platform, we realized that the power of it was far greater. The power of investing in big data would allow us, would put us in this prestige position whereby we could develop insights at the speed of thought. And I think that was really the exciting bit when we said develop insights at the speed of thought. And I think Shane will speak to you a little bit about how that had ignited his creativity in this particular space. But really, we started with some of the most incredible use case, and I think in hindsight, we probably went for the most complex one, and that was around automating within the branch network itself. Talk about establishing MVPs that are short, impactful, and allows you to learn quick and fast, and then move forward. But I think we thought that that taking the bull by the horn, investing in an environment where we're pairing at least 16 systems, and then trying to solve for something greater in terms of how do we maneuver this entire branch network. Given our presence on the continent, where we have the branch network that covers across 23 countries, we felt that once we've developed this use case, that the value would lie in the ability to then scale it across. And subsequently, from the last time that we presented to the delegates at the conference, we really presented where we were in the early stages of the development of the use case. But subsequently, I think the most exciting thing, the most profound outcomes, Craig, has been that COVID has actually been a catalyst for us to scale. And so we landed the use case. It was highly successful, and then subsequently, given that business now had to invest on work from home protocols, it did create some complexities in terms of how do we monitor standard operating controls. And immediately, internal audit was able to be resilient, agile. We repurposed our audit plan, and we saw the opportunities that GINA could provide the organization. And as a result, to date, we've now scaled it across 6 business areas in excess of 72 scripts that are running daily, and we're able to provide assurance around financial controls. That's the 4I principles that are being effected on a daily basis, logical access management, and then we've now added a new test whereby where staff are accessing the infrastructure and high-risk systems via Citrix, we now can do that on a daily basis.
Before I get into the technical side of things, Shane, I just want to touch on something there with Naresh. It's an ambitious project. It sounds like an incredibly large project. Lots of countries, lots of departments within the bank. It's obviously a very sophisticated system as well. How have you gone about scoping that and then landing that within the bank? Because that's a pretty major project. And I think a lot of people out there have these great ideas and these grand sort of plans to do these sorts of things, but they kind of fall down at the implementation side of things to really land it across so many multiple sites. How have you gone about really making sure that it sticks within the bank and people adopt it?
So I think the first challenge we had, and we had to learn. We had to learn the hard way around. Initially, we thought that the data scientists, if they got access to the data, well, one and done. Literally with the data, they could then start scripting, writing the rules, and then provide the full population automated results. And we had quickly realized that actually, that's not going to fly. That's not the secret to the recipe. And we acknowledged that there was a place for everyone. That actually the power in the success really laid in the ability of owning the entire ecosystem to play to their strengths. And as a result, we found that the business auditors played an absolutely critical role. And then, more importantly enough, it was how did we take the business owners on this journey? The first one we had to demonstrate to them was that it was not a policeman type of an approach. The second one was that we were actually there to help. We were there to help to increase the control monitoring capability. We were there to help the first time to actually embrace digitization and automation. And very quickly, we were able to articulate the pain points that the business was undergoing at that point in time. And when we were able to demonstrate the value proposition that came with it, we found that it became quite a collaborative effort in terms of how we came together. And it wasn't this tug of war in terms of actually, this is what we want. There wasn't this thing about egos playing out that, this is where we want to be, you give us, you provide us. It was always collaborative about it and quite iterative in terms of the continuous learning aspect associated with it. So that was the one aspect. And maybe I'll just lift it up a notch or two in terms of how we had to sort of take the different lines of defense within the organization and form a more strengthened combined assurance model. So the first one is then demonstrate the value proposition in the first line. Demonstrate how they could move away from sample-based risk assurance testing to full population, creating capacity so that they can then focus on more strategic areas of imperative. The second one was the second line of defense, which is actually the risk fraternity, and showing them the power of how they could then monitor those risks, how they could bring more value to the business, and how we could help them to advance even in their world digital solutions. And taking it one step further is that we then started at a very early stage start engaging with external audit. And external audit themselves were quite resistant initially because they haven't been down this path whereby they've been investing in full automation, digital testing. And there's always this risk aversiveness around big data and the complexities that come with it. So we had to go down a journey with them as well, take them on the journey, allow them to interrogate our platform, to interrogate the quality of the data, to interrogate the architecture. And when they could get those levels of comfort, we found that very quick and fast, they've been actually demanding more from us in terms of how can we create more value in terms of automating more repetitious processes so that they can get the benefit. And as a success factor, what we are seeing at the moment is that there's an absolutely increasing demand now from the first lines of defense saying that we want to invest a lot more now in digital full automation testing, because given the current crisis that we're in at the moment, it is presenting challenges in terms of how we actually enter the physical channels of the bank. And as a result, risk practitioners want to hone in on these type of solutions whereby they can remotely be able to monitor controls and then respond quick and fast to potential threats.
And I think the key thing there really what I picked up was sort of the value of co-creation. When you're ever doing a project, whether it be a fairly small data science model or something as big as this, is get the rest of the business actually involved in the development of it so that they feel that they've got ownership, they can kind of have their sort of say to what it's going to look like, how it's going to work for them. And I think those are the things that we've talked a lot about in the conferences and the roundtables that we've done. And it's great to see that you've actually kind of put that into play.
And to hone in, Craig, I mean, it may sound simplistic and it may sound quite effortless in the way we articulate what we've achieved. But I think it probably calls for another session in terms of the profound learnings that come with it. And the learnings itself is absolutely phenomenal because you start from a stage where there's fear in terms of or unwillingness to invest or to support this journey. And then very quick and fast when you can put some points on the scoreboard, when you can show some of those benefits out there, I think that's where the stickiness comes, and that's where you said the co-creation element starts building up manifoldly.
Yeah.
But it does require a great sense of resilient leadership. to be patient and to persevere, because it's not something that it just happens quick and fast. The patience is that you've got to actually take a step or two back and work according to the pace of your stakeholders. Give them the time and space to actually assimilate what is really happening. And I think once you put those points in the scoreboard, as I phrase it, then very quickly you start getting that willingness and buy-in.
Okay, so you've got the business side of it and the operation, the strategic side done. Shane, you've got the technical side, and it doesn't seem, again, like a very simple thing to have done. And I'm specifically interested in the insights at the speed of thought, because a lot of companies want to get to that point of real-time insights, make quick decisions, not having a lag of a week or whatever it may be, where you can lose out revenue or there's risk, there's maybe an attack on the bank or whatever it may be. Talk us a little bit through about how you've gone about developing the architecture and the technology behind this, and especially around that real-time insights.
Sure. So it was quite iterative, and one of the things that I recall is that we were challenged by our Standard Bank leadership to do more with less, and also to digitize. And those pressures, I suppose, were healthy triggers to create something like GINA. And with that in the back, we tried different avenues, and we got a lot of mistakes. And we made a lot of mistakes, and we got a lot of scars, and the lessons learned is something really awesome. But in doing that, we got to the outcome we wanted. And I remember starting this journey thinking, is this even possible? Things like that. But literally, the encouragement day by day, we got somewhere, and that was amazing. We started out again with the most simplest. Let's automate one process. Let's do that, and then from there, if we could do that, then why not do the other? Let's do the other, and that's how GINA grew. We were fortunate to also have a lot of support from our IT team. They supported us. Our risk team supported us on the journey as well. We developed very close to business. We belong in business. So in audit. So we were very close to the auditors. They were very close to the journey as well. And even the design, not being necessarily. So I'm a creative and technical by nature. So not knowing, and I needed to spend a lot of time understanding the audit world to be able to put this together. So with that in mind, they also gave feedback. We were able to incorporate that. I think GINA kicked off quite really well when we started to get into big data. And suddenly, sample-based testing was no longer sufficient in internal audit, and you're now looking at full population testing. And we thought at the point, that's brilliant and it's going to be awesome. But even with that comes its own complexities if you're testing full population testing. And the bank is a 150-year-old bank, over 150 years old. And it's got legacy systems. And Naresh spoke about his particular audit, because Naresh led the first branch of audit. And it had disparate systems that weren't necessarily designed to speak to each other. And we had to consider all this data that was coming to the system. And they were huge, large amounts of data, and they existed not in a single place where you just go. And you have to go and almost source it at different parts of the organization. And the organization really helped us along the way as well. A few phone calls here, a few late nights as well. And they were willing to come to the party. And the minute we shared the why, that was them. It's not just about we want to do this and please but rather we want to do this and this is where you can benefit. This is why it's going to be such big value to you. That being said, I remember Naresh's audit was the first audit, and we were at that point looking for someone to put their hand up to say they'll test our system. And he decided to be guinea pig. But this year, I think when we kicked off, we literally had a line waiting outside and saying, guys, could you automate in our space as well? And so for me, that speaks volumes of the success. We were able to grow quite a bit. We were able to leverage off existing technologies that were open source. So we've got Hadoop in the background. We've got a lot of support in Cloudera. So quite a bit happening in that space that also helped us on our journey. Yeah. We didn't know everything. We learned along the way. Yeah. and that's how we
And I think that's a similar story to a lot of people. You learn on the way. I think you've got to make that start and kind of have the vision in mind. And I think the creativity is a really important point as well, because I think a lot of people think that this is a very technical thing. It's a bit boring. It's sort of boxy and framework and stuff. But it takes a lot of creativity to come up with something like this, and I think see the vision and the future of it as well.
Yeah, I think ready to set the data science team for success. it required hours and hours of engagement, and we had to really work as a common squad, a squad that was, fully integrated, and that's where we found the power of that, as a result of being integrated. Because as we picked up friction, throughout the journey, as we picked up blockers, very quickly as a collective team, we were able to come together and solve that quick and fast. And there were times where there was some tests that it almost seemed impossible. But when we spoke about what the intent was, when we spoke about what the outcome we were looking for, the data scientists themselves were able to go and interrogate the data. Despite labeling of the data being inconsistent, but by looking simply at the nature of the data, they were able to put something together, and before you know it, we were there. Yeah. So there was constant peaks and troughs, and it really pivots about leadership of playing each other to the strengths, to be transparent, but at the same time being very solution focused and being realistic. You have to very quickly make decisions as to whether we actually go down this path or we change tact. And that really constantly challenges, your traditional approach versus, a very innovative approach. Yeah. So, Shane wanted to.
No, Naresh is saying something. My mind went to the exactly day we were sitting there and we were getting all the stuff done. But I can hear just something that you said. It's really putting everybody's strengths onto the journey. We're sitting in a meeting and then we're like, how do we solve this? And then one person said, oh no, I've got that. And then, okay. and it was that for me was amazing because the whole team came together in designing it. The other part about the traditional audit that Naresh spoke about is everything that we knew traditionally in internal audit we had to almost unlearn. That was very difficult, and that's very difficult for any human being. And now we spoke about where in traditional audit we audited at a dipstick, and we said, well, let's look at a dipstick. This is a sample base, and this is what it's telling us. And that's no longer good enough. And we're saying, let's look at a data range in motion and tell me what did happen in this 3 months, and provide an independent opinion on that. And that started to change the mindset of internal audit almost around the world on this topic. And that's for us was something we as a kind of spurred off on the side. The other component is nobody in the roles that we played, we've never played this before. Yeah. We've never done this before. So it was literally, how do we work with business? How do we work with technical? So when do I start, when do they end? But Naresh said it quite nicely when we started, is that with egos as outside, we all had the same goal. We wanted to make this work, and whether we got involved in auditing or whether they got involved in technical, that crossover happened.
Yeah. And then effectively, coming down the journey, in terms of, we've got an incredible automation platform. We've got incredible skilled individuals who understand the business. We have data scientists who's ready to, plug and play and, get out there and produce those insights. But I think the most deflating and the most challenging aspect would have been around data quality. Around data quality, Craig, and data quality, and more importantly, when you have an organization that's built on independent systems and which work in silos. Now we have the arduous task of actually pairing and bringing it together. And I think that was probably one of the bigger challenges, and I did change to speak a little bit about it. And together with that came about the issues around data security. And fortunately, very quickly, Shane and the team were able to engage with our data services team, and then we were able to create an integration layer that encrypted the data. So in other words, we could then go to especially your human capital environments, and give them the reassurance that this particular data is protected, it's secure, it's safe, and not susceptible, to theft or to unauthorized use. And that also then started helping us to move faster because there was more integrity and confidence in the process. So maybe on the data side, maybe you want to share a little bit about how we went down that path,
Yeah, and, especially from when you're trying to get to real-time insights or insights at the speed of thought. I mean, that quality's got to be there all the time. You can't take a week or whatever to remediate the data, clean up the data, etc., to ingest into the system. How did you manage that, Shane?
So so the first one, the biggest thing for them was where my data is going. I'm going to let you use the data, and what are you going to do with it? And they needed to have that level of confidence that it was secure, and it was in a very secure space. We didn't necessarily have that answer immediately, but because of the way the team was organized, we were able to respond very quickly. And with that, we created what we call the audit provisioning layer, which is a secured layer. But to understand some of the, yes, you couldn't work. So with audit, you don't want to be working on curated data as per se. Or you want to be able to test curated data. And you need to know that it's one-for-one with source, because of those deviations could almost change your output. So we did our best to get the data raw as possible. And from raw, we were able to uncover things that we never uncovered in our past. And just because of the nature of getting the data. The business changes and evolves over time, and we need to use curated data, the data kind of looks right for your needs, but with all the years of all these clever people in the bank that have made this report to whatever they wanted, you don't know what you've left out. And then when we pull the raw data and we try to match that back, and we realize, we missed a whole chunk of data that we just never analyzed, or we never looked at that. So the raw data for us was something that was big on topic. So we needed to make sure that we're always auditing at source, but very difficult to get, very difficult to do.
Yeah,
and not the easiest.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we close off, I thought maybe you could give us sort of your top 5 lessons that you've learned from a project like this, because I think a lot of people listening and watching to this will kind of now be inspired and go out and do a really major project within their own organizations. But as you said, there's scars. You know, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that you would share with others?
For me, the first one for me is that we got so excited about the technology. This is just like from the technology guys, and we've got an amazing team. And I'll do a shout out later. But we've got an amazing team. But we got so engrossed on the technology, and then it occurred to me that one of my peers came to me and said to me, like, I'm feeling insecure about this. And I said, why? And he said to me, the branch audit actually came up in conversation. He said, I don't know this. This is not my realm. I'm an auditor. And this is moving so fast. And what that's been so exciting as well, we kept on coming up with more and more and more before they could even take in like step 1. And then I think it dawned on me that there's a lot of people here that need to be brought on the journey as well. And they even asked me, they said, I've done the branch audit for the last so many years, and now I'm not doing it because of what you guys are doing. And there was a human sense for me there, that called to me, and that we needed to do more than just embrace technology. Technology is fantastic, I love technology, but it has to pair for purpose, it has to pair with people. So for me, that was the first lesson. So bring them on the journey, give them a path to walk.
Yeah, maybe one from you, Naresh.
Yeah, from my side, I think people are the most important ingredient in this entire journey, and it's quite critical that you be quite sensitive and understand each other's strengths and play them to their strengths, and constantly, provide the mentorship, provide the coaching. Don't assume that everybody's on the same page, and don't assume that everybody, can produce that which you want them. You have high expectation, and don't assume that there isn't fear in the system. So you got to make sure that the way you go about it is really in a very collaborative manner, one in which you are taking people on the journey, and together with it, it requires a great sense of patience and resilience. Especially when you're working with that most important ingredient, which is called people. We speak about automation, we speak about a system, but really, the system is there to help us to become more efficient, to make more decisions more efficiently, to remove some of the mundane type of operational, repetitive pieces of work, but more so allow us to become more effective. And I think when people can see that, then you actually suppress, that sense of fear that, maybe my work will become redundant. Maybe it's as challenging, whether my skill will be relevant. And I think that's the important journey to go. you asked me for one, but the other learning is really, I can't resist. But they say, data is the new oil, and so the great lesson is that before you embark on it, understand your data, understand clearly what is your objective, what is the outcomes that you want to achieve, and then understand, do I have the data? Because if you don't have the data, you're going to be spinning, you'll become frustrating. But I think if you started off the journey, a very collaborative one with your business partners, engaging them, and then understand the problem statement, understand the pain point, solve for it, and then ultimately, then ask the question around where's the data, and let them be part and parcel of the journey where they share, because then you don't run the risk of coming at the end of a journey and then be challenged, well, where did you get the data, and is this the right data?
Yeah.
So, it's two from me.
For me, for technology, there's so much out there already, and sometimes in an organization as vast as ours, there's some such clever people all over. And what we decided to do is also not try to recreate everything, but also to work with people that have done a lot of things in the group. And that for us, we have a fantastic data services team in Stanbank, and they were behind us throughout the entire project. They supported us. They gave us. They work late nights with us, and we sometimes take that for granted. GINA is such a big, successful project. There's so many hands went into it. Even if it's a small part of, we're down for 2 minutes and we need a report out, and guys, can you support us? And they come out and they do their thing, and that was amazing. That was amazing. So it's. I always don't ever try to claim that GINA's. I believe GINA's good. It's a good product. I don't believe it's a silver bullet, but I believe it's because of the different people coming in, different components of things like that makes it. Technology, there's so much out there. Which one do you go to? Why? Why do you choose this over another? And for me, it was to be less fixated with that. What's existing? What's our bank strategic platform? Let's leverage off what exists. And it's better that to build on that step. And we've got a model here, which is the toolbox. So if somebody set up a toolbox, how can we enhance that? And I love that.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big lesson. So don't try to recreate too much.
Yeah.
Just build.
Yeah. All right. So the success of GINA is really down to a lot of people in the bank. It's not just you two guys, your departments, etc., but everybody getting involved. So this award, and Shane, I'll ask you to pick up that award, and then we will hand over in these times. But congratulations to you and the whole team. Inaugural DataCon Africa Awards, and the first one of the Data Analytics Project of the Year for 2020 is Standard Bank's GINA project. Guys, congratulations. Maybe, Shane, time for that shout out.
So
Go for it, Shane.
It's a pleasure to accept this award, and it's almost it's really from Corinium to such a prestigious organization as well. Big shout out to the people who made this possible, and it's not the two people necessarily standing here. There's people behind the scenes, and we've got an Irish person that helped us, and shout out to Chanel, Naresh. We've got Grant, who was really the backbone technology guru behind GINA as well. And we've got people from across the team, our leadership, Hema. It's and actually this is to GIA for embracing it, for the GIA leadership and our GIA people. This is for you.
Yeah, and maybe from my side, really in keeping with our purpose of, Africa's home, we drive our growth. And really, this is just one way that we are actually contributing to the growth of Africa as we scale the solution wider. So a wonderful shout out and great acknowledgement to our GI executive team, to the teams that have been involved in the initial use cases, and the ones that continue to invest and be passionate and to bring out the best in it. So, and then a big shout out to the business who's demonstrated their patience with us, who's really given us an infinite amount of support. Without that collaboration, we wouldn't be where we are. So thank you, and thank you, Craig. Thank you for the acknowledgement, and thank you for giving us the confidence that we can take this solution and do even greater wonders with it.
No, absolute pleasure. Naresh, Shane, thank you so much for joining me as well. First time in person. It's great to have an in-person conversation with people. Thanks so much for joining me, guys.
So brilliant.
Great.
Thank you.
Excellent.